Back in July, we went on a family holiday to Anglesey, North Wales. It was a perfect dog-friendly holiday full of beach running, sea paddling and castle exploring. And definitely a holiday we will always remember. But while we were on the beach on the last day, I thought of a little keepsake to remember it all by. I picked up a piece of driftwood and a collection of shells, some bigger white ones and some smaller black, white and tan coloured ones. If you're familiar with the jelly and pickle family, you might see where I'm going with this. I have these two types of shadow box frames from previous projects. The wooden box had a depth of 2 cm, the grey box had 3 cm. And being as this piece of driftwood was 2 and a bit centimetres thick, I went with the grey shadow box. I measured the inner width of the frame and measured and cut the same size in the driftwood. I used a junior saw for this because that's what was in the house and easiest to grab, but I definitely should have used a proper wood saw to make my life easier, but I got there in the end. The cut driftwood managed to fit perfectly inside the frame, wedged just enough so that it held itself in place. However, the back of the wood was sticking out the back of the frame. Turns out the actual depth of the frame was not 3 cm. I considered cutting the back length of the driftwood, but then I saw it with just the glass and no back, and I actually quite like the look of that. I realised pushing down the tabs also holds the frame in place, so it all worked out okay. It was then time to pick out the shells. The idea is that the 2 larger shells represent me and Joe, so I chose these 2. The 2 smaller shells represent Pickle and Winnie, so a black and tan one for Pickle and a black and white one for Winnie. I tried to figure out the placement of the shells on the driftwood, but it was a little tricky getting them to balance. So it's time to put it all together. Using a strong 2-part glue, I glued the driftwood into the frame, making sure there was lots of glue where the edges met. Once I was happy with the placement, leaving it to dry fully. A few minutes later, it was well and truly stuck, so time to add the shells. I tested the position, making sure the shell wouldn't stick out past the frame. I used some tape to keep the shell in place while it dried, adding glue to all the places touching the driftwood, spacing out all 4 shells and leaving them again to dry fully. While I waited for this to dry, I cleaned up the glass for the frame, and then decided it needed a little extra detail. So I measured the front of the frame ready for a label. I used my silhouette to cut some white vinyl to give the destination and date of the holiday. The font I chose was fairly small, so I had to use a technique called reverse weeding to get the label out. I then added the destination to the top of the frame, but had some trouble getting the vinyl to stick, so I left the vinyl to adhere, and it was time to test the shells and remove the tape. And it was perfect. Let's put the frame back together and then use some surgery skills to get the vinyl to stick. And that is the perfect holiday memory keepsake finished. I really loved how it turned out. There was a bit of a delay making this frame, but I'm so glad I picked up these items and got round to making this. I love the abstract look, and hopefully the idea of the shells representing the jelly and pickle family comes across too. Either way, it will make a perfect talking point to tell all our friends and family how amazing Anglesey holidays are. Give this video a like if you love the idea of this keepsake too, and hit the subscribe to see more crafts like this in the future. Please enjoy this video of Pickle and Winnie on our holiday, being incredibly spoiled with their own dog-sized roast dinners.